The cul-de-sac was a quiet sanctuary, a patch of suburban tranquility where every lawn was a testament to the collective pride of its residents. It was an enclave protected by the strict covenants of the homeowners association, a badge of honor for some, a yoke for others. For me, it was the usual backdrop of life, a place where I could walk my dog, Duke down the sidewalk, without a second thought. Duke was a majestic creature, a large mix of breeds with a coat as dark as a moonless night and eyes that spoke of loyalty and intelligence. He was my constant companion, his presence a silent balm against the humdrum of everyday existence. Yet in the eyes of Karen's self-appointed guardian of neighborhood decorum, Duke was an aberration, a disturbance in her meticulously curated reality. Karen was a fixture of the neighborhood, her voice laden with the insistence of someone accustomed to getting their way often pierced the air like a siren. To each afternoon she brought a new offense, imagined or otherwise, to the attention of anyone within earshot. Her complaints were as regular as the morning paper, her grievances laid out like a well-worn script. It started innocuously enough with a sideways glance as Duke and I passed her pastel-colored home. Her disapproval was palpable, a tangible thing that seemed to cling to the air long after we had moved past. The subtle weight of her judgment was something I had come to expect, a minor inconvenience easily shrugged off. The first formal complaint was almost laughable. A note tucked neatly into my mailbox, its words as clipped and precise as its author. She claimed Duke's mere presence was intimidating, that his aggressive demeanor was a threat to the peace she so zealously guarded. I could almost hear the nasally whine of her voice. As I read it, the self-righteous indignation woven into every line. I responded with the grace of someone who refused to be drawn into a petty skirmish. A polite reply was penned assuring her that Duke was as gentle as a summer breeze, a friend to anyone who might approach him with kindness. To me, it was a matter settled with a soft touch, a solution found in understanding rather than confrontation. But Karen's resolve was as ironclad as the HOA's covenants. Each encounter was marked by a new tactic, a fresh complaint. The grass was too long, she claimed. Next, the extension of our lawn, a personal affront to her pristine flower beds. Her irritation was relentless, a tide that refused to recede, and yet I remained anchored in my resolve to not let her pettiness dictate my peace. I learned to navigate around her, an artful dance that kept our encounters as brief as possible. But beneath the calm exterior, I could feel a slow simmering, a discomfort that threatened to disrupt my quiet existence. I held tightly to patience, a lifeline, in a storm of unwarranted complaints. And then one bright morning, the sheriff's car idled into the neighborhood, a beacon of authority. Its presence was a shock, a disruption in the well-ordered fabric of our lives. Karen's complaints had reached a new crescendo, her demands for compliance now backed by the weight of law. I watched from a distance as she gestured wildly, the sheriff nodding with the practiced patience of someone used to diffusing suburban disputes. It was a turning point, an unexpected shift in a narrative that had grown stale with repetition. I sensed in that moment a change, an unraveling of the petty tyranny that had been allowed to fester, unchecked. Duke sat beside me, his eyes steady, his presence a reminder of the loyalty and strength that comes from understanding, not fear. This was no longer just a skirmish over a dog or the length of grass. It was a battle for the soul of our neighborhood, a stand against the pettiness that sought to divide us. And as the sheriff turned towards me, I felt a quiet resolve solidify within. This was just the beginning. The sun dripped its late afternoon warmth over our neighborhood like honey, but the sweetness couldn't mask the simmering tensions beneath our manicured lawns. Karen had taken her dissatisfaction with my dog Max. to new heights. Her distaste had evolved into a crusade, a vendetta that demanded the full force of the HOA's rulebook. Max, a gentle giant with soulful eyes, had the unfortunate fate of resembling a creature from some misguided imagination of terror. Her latest salvo arrived in the form of a letter slipped under my door with all the subtlety of a dagger. Max was now apparently in violation of an exhaustive list of HOA regulations. Too Aggressive had morphed into a narrative with its own life whispered among neighbors who once stopped to pet him. Fear, it seemed, was a contagious thing. The demands grew absurd. Max was to be muzzled at all times outdoors. Walks were restricted to after 9 p.m. when the moon took its turn at watch. Failure to comply would result in fines each day accumulating like interest on a loan I never signed up for. Karen's piece de resistance, however, lay in her campaigning. She moved through the neighborhood with all the stealth of a morning fog, weaving tales of supposed close calls and near misses. Her stories multiplied faster than they could be countered. Each retelling painted Max as more monstrous than the last, until even I half expected him to sprout fangs and howl at the moon. Inside my home, the air buzzed with an electric tension. Max, sensing the unease, padded around with a quiet confusion nuzzling against my hand as if to shield me from this new storm. His loyalty was a balm, a gentle reminder of who he really was beneath the cloak of suspicion. I took to walking, Max under the thick veil of night stars blinking down with apathy. The world felt smaller corners, sharper shadows longer. Silence had become my constant companion, punctuated by the soft patter of paws against pavement. Here, away from prying eyes, Max could be himself, free from the weight of expectation and judgment. The sheriff's visit unfolded with a quiet gravity. The official summons for Karen to apologize was not a victory, but rather a strange, bittersweet validation of what was painfully obvious. Justice was a fickle, capricious thing. He arrived at her door with the authority of a man who had seen frivolity dressed as righteousness too many times. In that moment, our shared fence felt less like a boundary and more like the thin line separating sanity from the absurd. I watched from my window the lightless room a perfect veil. The sheriff's words were lost to me, but his posture spoke volumes, a firm stance that brooked no dissent. Karen's face was a canvas of reluctant understanding, a portrait of a woman confronting the fragility of her own narratives. Her gaze flickered toward my window, her expression unreadable. In that look, a silent acknowledgement of the ridiculous dance we'd been engaged in, each step backward and forward, set to the tune of misjudged intentions. Apologies, when they came, were perfunctory and hollow, a transaction rather than a transformation. But they carried the weight of a small, significant shift, an admission that some battles are best left unfought. The sun dipped below the horizon, and I felt the neighborhood exhale a collective release of breath held too long. In the twilight, Max and I sat side by side, his head resting on my knee. The world momentarily righted. The night air was cool and forgiving, embracing us as we sat together in the quiet aftermath of a storm finally passing. As the cicadas droned their late summer songs, I found myself on the back porch, a cup of coffee in hand, observing the world that had inexplicably turned on its head. The sun was gentle, casting long, thoughtful shadows across the lawn. Max, my so-called aggressive dog, lay sprawled at my feet, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around us. His soft snores were a cadence of innocence, a sharp contrast to the swirling chaos Karen had ignited. Karen. Her name lingered in the air like stale perfume, a constant reminder of the absurdity that had seeped into our neighborhood. Her complaints had escalated from whispers behind hedges to full-blown accusations, all aimed at Max. Her insistence that his demeanor was a threat to the peace of our community was both baffling and infuriating. I decided to approach her with subtlety, not with aggression or confrontation, but with documentation. I collected photos and videos of Max during our daily routines, capturing his playful nature, his gentle interactions with neighbors, both human and canine. Memories of him cuddling a toddler, lazily chasing after squirrels, and dutifully carrying sticks larger than himself became my arsenal. The neighbors were on my side, albeit quietly. They offered nods of understanding and whispered words of support, but silence reigned when Karen was near. Her presence was a storm cloud, casting an oppressive shadow over block parties and book clubs alike. I noted these interactions too, the support that bloomed in the spaces she could not see. It was time to present my case. I compiled the evidence into a neat binder, each page a testament to Max's gentle spirit. There was irony in using bureaucracy, a language Karen knew so well against her. I contacted the sheriff, a stoic man with kind eyes, to explain the situation. He listened, nodding as though he had heard many tales of neighborhood discord. But I detected a flicker of amusement when he glanced at the images of Max. The meeting was set for a warm afternoon. Karen arrived with a sense of self-righteousness, her posture rigid with indignation. The sheriff and I met her in the community center, a place that echoed with memories of bake sales and holiday fairs. The air was thick with tension, as if the walls themselves held their breath. The sheriff spoke first, his voice calm and steady, explaining the situation and the evidence before him. Her face flushed, the color creeping up her neck like a rising tide. Her words sputtered, but the sheriff raised a hand, a gentle yet firm gesture that silenced her protests. Then came the moment of reckoning. With a voice as sharp as the crack of dawn, he delivered his verdict. An apology was due. The irony dangled in the air like a delicate thread poised to snap. I watched Karen's expression shift, her bravado dissolving into reluctant acceptance. The apology, when it came, was clipped and reluctant, like the last leaves of autumn clinging to their branches. But it was enough to let the sun break through the clouds, and to let peace return to our shared world. I nodded, accepting, though. Internally, I knew this victory was not just mine, but Max's, a testament to his unyielding gentleness in the face of unwarranted vilification. As we left, Max trotted beside me, his tail wagging with unbridled joy, oblivious to the complexities of human discord. The neighborhood resumed its rhythm, and I returned to the serenity of my porch, the world realigning itself with each passing moment. Peace had returned, not loudly, but in the quiet way of a morning sun creeping over the horizon, promising a new day. The morning after my encounter with Karen and the sheriff, the world seemed to shimmer with a quiet promise. The sun cast a soft glow on the dew-drenched grass, highlighting the intricate patterns of nature's lace. My heart was untroubled, but my mind was set on a course that would unfurl like a well-planned tapestry. Karen's accusations had planted seeds of audacity in the soil of my resolve. Her disdainful glance at Max, my loyal Labrador, echoed in my thoughts like a discordant note demanding resolution. I found solace not in confrontation, but in the whispering wisdom of legal texts, where justice lay dormant, waiting to be awakened by a discerning hand. Through the weeks that followed, I steered clear of Karen's watchful eyes. My path was deliberate, my actions measured. I gathered pieces of paper like a collector, curating a gallery of truth. Homeowners Association bylaws, local ordinances, and state statutes. Each document a brushstroke in the portrait of my case. Max, unaware of the human drama unfolding around him, remained a bastion of unwavering loyalty. His eyes held the kind of wisdom only animals possess, a knowledge of hearts, untainted by the complexities of human disdain. He lounged by my feet, a silent witness to my preparations. His steady presence, a balm to my quiet determination. The letter was a masterpiece of understated elegance crafted with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. It was not a plea for sympathy or an appeal to emotion, but a statement of fact, a weaving of Karen's own words into a tapestry of her making. Every line was a mirror, reflecting her folly, each paragraph a step closer to an inevitable conclusion. As I sealed the envelope, a sense of calm washed over me. There is power in the unspoken strength, in actions quiet and deliberate. I had no need for confrontation, no desire for spectacle. The real drama was not in the public arena, but in the quiet spaces where truth takes root and flourishes. The days turned into a slow, deliberate march toward resolution. I watched from a distance as Karen's demeanor shifted, her bravado tempered by the weight of realization. Her glances were no longer sharpened with hostility, but softened by a dawning awareness of her own overreach. The sheriff's visit was the final stroke, a punctuation mark at the end of our unspoken dialogue. His words were few, yet they resounded with the force of a gavel striking home. Karen's apology was a concession, a quiet acknowledgement of a battle fought and lost. In the end, more than vindication, there was a lesson in humility. As the dust settled, I found peace not in her apology, but in the quiet affirmation that justice, when pursued with patience and resolve, is an art form in itself. Max Ever the Sage wagged his tail with the enthusiasm of the unburdened. In his eyes there was no trace of the conflict that had passed, only the simple joy of a life lived in the present. The neighborhood returned to its rhythm, the tide of normalcy smoothing over the ripples of our little drama. Yet in the quiet moments when the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself reflecting on the power of silence, the elegance of restraint, and the quiet strength that lies in standing firm, steadfast as a lighthouse guiding ships through troubled waters. The afternoon sun felt warmer than usual, as if the universe itself was trying to melt away the remnants of chaos Karen had infused into our once tranquil neighborhood. I stood on my porch watching the world as it tried to realign itself after the storm had passed. My dog Zeus lay lazily at my feet, his eyes half closed in gentle contentment, oblivious to the tumultuous drama that had just recently revolved around him. Karen's reign had ended not with a bang, but with the soft rustle of papers, official letters delivered to every doorstep. They detailed in pragmatic legalese the results of the investigation that had followed the sheriff's intervention. The motion to revoke Karen's authority in the HOA had been passed unanimously, a fact that would probably sting her more than any reprimand. For once the community had found a common voice, a chorus that sang of relief and new beginnings. The air smelled different that day, crisp and clean, stripped of her overbearing influence. Neighbors passed by, a few nodding in my direction, their smiles a little less tight-lipped than before. I could sense the barriers dissolving, walls built from whispered complaints and silent agreements finally crumbling. I thought of Karen, her imperious presence reduced to a quiet whisper in the corner of communal gatherings. I could picture her standing at her window, peering out from behind floral curtains, a spectator in a world she once tried to control. I almost felt a pang of sympathy, a feeling I quickly swatted away like an errant fly. She had her chance to be part of something greater, but her need to dominate had led her to this solitude. Zeus shifted at my feet, stretching luxuriously as if testing the boundaries of a freedom newly acquired. I smiled at him, at peace with the knowledge that he would no longer be judged by the sharp angles of his jaw or the depth of his bark. He was just a dog, blissfully unaware of human folly. Across the street, children were playing again, their laughter, a melody that had been absent for too long. It rippled through the neighborhood, each peal of joy a reminder that life, much like the seasons, was cyclic. The oppressive heat of summer had given way to the gentle embrace of autumn, and with it, the promise of change. I stepped down from the porch, Zeus padding alongside me. We took to the path that wound through the neighborhood, retracing steps that were now free of the weight of judgment. The grass was still lush and green, a testament to resilience refusing to wither under the pressure of a single tyrant's rule. As we strolled, I reflected on how quickly things could unravel, and yet in the same breath resettle with a newfound harmony. The community had survived its trial by fire, and like tempered steel emerged stronger. We knew now the power of unity, the strength found in collective voice. The clouds drifted lazily across the sky, indifferent to the dramas below. It was a reminder of perspective, of the smallness of our troubles against the backdrop of a wider world. Karen would remain a part of our story, not as a villain, but as a catalyst for change. In the end, maybe that was her unintended gift, a lesson wrapped in conflict. And as Zeus and I continued our walk, I knew that we were not just moving forward. We were stepping into a future shaped by the echoes of a past now firmly behind us.